Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here again to really cut through the noise and get to the core insights that can actually make a difference. Today, we're looking at leadership, specifically some often, overlooked principles for being truly effective, especially now when things change so fast. We're drawing from some really insightful thinking and research on leadership. Yeah, distilling it down into some guiding ideas that might challenge how you think about your impact, how you work with your team. Our goal really is to pull out the practical stuff, those moments where you go, okay, that's how it works. Not just what good leadership is, but how you can actually embody it. What I find compelling is how these sources connect the leader's own journey, like their internal world, with their external influence. It's not just about actions, but who you are.
Exactly. That connection is key, isn't it? The link between personal growth and the team's success. We tend to focus a lot on strategies, the outward stuff, but what we're looking at today suggests that real, lasting leadership impact, it often starts much closer to home within the leader themselves. We'll try to pinpoint some things you can, maybe start thinking about or doing differently right away.
That sounds great. So let's dive into the first principle. We're calling it Core Tenet 1. Create the space your team needs, not the one you want. When I first encountered that phrasing, it really made me pause. How often do we, maybe unintentionally, impose our idea of a good environment onto our teams? Instead of figuring out what they actually need, it makes you ask yourself, doesn't it, what kind of space are you actually cultivating right now? And this tenet argues something interesting. It says effective communication, dealing with conflict. It starts with humility and patience. Honestly, I was a bit surprised at first. I kind of expected to hear about frameworks, specific processes maybe. Why do these sources emphasize these, virtues, humility and patience? What makes them so critical?
Well, think about it. They're the bedrock, right? Everything else, all the frameworks and processes, they're built on top of this foundation. A truly humble leader accepts that their view isn't the whole picture. It's just, it's inherently incomplete. So they don't just react to problems. They actively design ways to bring in different views, to encourage dissent even before things blow up. They're not afraid to actually say, okay, I might be missing something here. What do you see? And patience, it's not about just sitting back. It's an active choice. It's about allowing for a bit of discomfort, letting the team grapple with a tough problem for a bit longer, explore different angles. Often that's where the really innovative solutions come from, ideas that wouldn't surface if the leader just jumped in with their first answer. The sources really emphasize how this approach builds an environment where people feel genuinely safe to share, to experiment, and yeah, even to challenge the status quo. This mindset shift, it's about prioritizing understanding over being understood. When a leader consistently comes from that place, it just fundamentally changes the team's dynamic. It takes the personal edge off discussions. Conflicts become opportunities for collaborative problem solving, not battles. And that leads straight to resolving things more efficiently, finding solutions that really work for the whole organization, not just, someone's ego. So ultimately, humility and patience, they act as catalysts. They enable truly effective communication because they build that crucial psychological safety.
Prioritizing understanding over being understood. That really is a big shift, isn't it? Especially for people used to being in charge. It flips that old top-down model. And the sources mention something else connected to this, kind of surprising. In some cases, the student can be the teacher. How does a leader, especially an experienced one, actually embrace that? It could feel a bit counterintuitive, couldn't it? When you're ultimately the one responsible.
It's absolutely vital for leadership that wants to keep evolving. It takes a real shift in mindset, though. Leaders gain so much when they recognize that their team members, especially those closer to the action or with deep technical skills, often have incredibly valuable insights, things the leader just won't see. So to embrace it, you have to actively seek it out. You have to want to learn from them. Our sources talk about things like reverse mentoring, where maybe junior folks school senior leaders on new tech or market shifts. And it's not just a nice to have feel good thing. It's strategic. It brings fresh perspectives right into the leadership thinking. It's about leveraging the collective brain power, not just relying on the person at the top. In practical terms, it means asking questions like, what are you seeing out there that I might be missing? Or, okay, if you were sitting in my chair, what would you do differently here and why? Crucially, when disagreements or communication issues pop up, you got to keep the focus on the business need. Consciously try to strip out the emotion. Now, saying remove emotion is easy, doing it is hard, right?
Right.
So the sources suggest some practical tools, maybe structured disagreement protocols, like assign someone to be the devil's advocate, or use an issue register to log problems objectively, focusing on the issue, not the person. This helps keep things objective, even when things get heated. Focus on solving the problem together.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Having a clear process, focusing on the business goal, it helps take the personal sting out, lets real learning happen, and connecting back to accountability, which you touched on.
Mm-hmm.
When leaders do take ownership consistently for their decisions, their actions, even their mistakes, what kind of example does that set? How does it shape the culture?
Oh, the impact is huge. Monumental, really. Taking ownership isn't just about saying, my bad. It demonstrates a deep level of responsibility, of commitment. It sends a powerful signal to everyone on the team. It says, integrity matters here. Self-awareness matters. Dedication to our shared goals matters most. Imagine a leader who openly says, okay, that strategy didn't work out as planned. Here's what I think we learned, and here's how we're going to adjust, instead of, pointing fingers.
Yeah, it built enormous trust.
Exactly. So when leaders genuinely embrace humility, patience, and accountability, they're not just putting out fires. They are actively, consciously building a strong culture. A culture of open communication, real collaboration, mutual respect. That foundation of psychological safety we talked about. Where people feel okay speaking up, trying new things, even failing sometimes because they know the focus is on learning and growth, not blame. So for you listening, maybe think about the culture in your own sphere. Are these qualities really visible? Are they encouraged day to day?
That's definitely something to reflect on. And this idea of cultivating, of growing something, it leads perfectly into our next point, doesn't it? You can't really cultivate a great team culture unless you're also actively cultivating yourself. Which brings us right to our second guiding principle from the sources, core tenet 2, keep growing your garden.
I love this metaphor. It's so vivid. Like a garden needs that constant, deliberate care to thrive, right? To actually produce something. Our own journeys, our roles, our projects. They need that same kind of intentional nurturing to reach their full potential. It's not like you just plant it and walk away. So how do we actually do this gardening for ourselves, professionally, personally, in a way that really supports our leadership? What does that look like beyond just, read more books?
It's about being very deliberate, very strategic about your own development. Like a skilled gardener. You know how a gardener prunes dead wood, pulls weeds that drain the plant's energy?
We need to do that too. Prune away distractions. Maybe commitments that aren't aligned anymore, even old habits that are holding us back. That might mean saying no more often, perhaps to things that seem okay but don't really move the needle, or being disciplined about, say, how much time you spend scrolling versus thinking. Then, yes, fertilizing the mind. But not just randomly consuming information, seeking out knowledge that genuinely expands your view, challenges your assumptions, fills in critical gaps. Maybe that's learning about a totally different field, finding mentors outside your usual circle, or having those deep, maybe even uncomfortable conversations that stretch you, and watering the spirit. This is about purpose. Constantly reconnecting with your why. What drives you? What impact do you want to have? Maybe that's through reflection. Maybe it's spending time on things that truly recharge you. Maybe it's just consciously reminding yourself of your core values. The sources suggest that when we do this consistently, we build this internal environment where our gifts, our strengths, can grow really strong and resilient, like a tree that's seen a few storms. It's this ongoing, intentional process. Self-care, yes, but also profound personal development.
Okay, so that raises a key question. All this internal work, this tending your own garden, how does that actually translate? How does it impact our ability to lead others, make a real difference out there? How does nurturing ourselves lead to that bountiful harvest of impact and influence, as the sources put it? It could almost feel a bit inward-looking at first.
It might seem that way, but it's actually the opposite of selfish. You could argue it's the foundation of selfless leadership. There's a powerful line in the material. The greatest contribution a leader can make is to do the necessary work within themselves in order to make these goals tangible to others.
Make the goals tangible to others.
Exactly. If we connect the dots, this internal cultivation, it directly fuels your ability to inspire and guide your team much more effectively. When you've done that hard internal work, you've pruned the distractions, you've fed your mind, you've clarified your purpose, your vision, your goals, your whole way of leading becomes clearer, more authentic, more robust. And that internal strength isn't just for you, it's what makes those big goals, that vision you have, feel real and achievable to your team. They sense that clarity, that conviction, that purpose in you. They see you modeling disciplined growth, and it rubs off. It inspires them. It cuts through the noise, creates this kind of magnetic pull, makes them want to rally around you, trust where you're going, and bring their best work. So your personal garden, when it's thriving, it literally fuels the success of the whole team, the whole organization.
Wow, what a journey through these ideas today. We've really unpacked two incredibly powerful principles for leadership. First, that core tenet 1, create the space your team needs. Doing that through humility, patience, accountability, really building that psychological safety for true collaboration. And then, core tenet 2, keep growing your garden. That deep need for intentional personal cultivation, nurturing yourself to lead others better. We really hope you, listening, will take some time to think about how these apply to your own path. Whether you have a formal title or not, these ideas about leading with impact in your interactions are, well, they're relevant to everyone. Maybe think about a recent challenge. How might approaching it with a bit more humility or taking time to prune your own assumptions first have shifted things?
Yeah, and what's really striking is how interconnected these two are. Your ability to create that right kind of space for your team. It's deeply tied to the work you're doing in your own garden. You can only really empower and inspire others effectively when you yourself are grounded, self-aware, and committed to your own continuous growth. They aren't separate things at all. They're like two sides of the same leadership coin. So maybe a final thought to chew on as you go about your week. If your internal garden isn't really thriving, how fertile, how truly safe is the space you're actually offering your team? And flipping that around, how much faster, how much more creatively might your own garden grow if you genuinely leaned into learning from your students, the people you lead and interact with every single day? It's a cycle, isn't it?
Powerful thoughts indeed. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope these insights spark something for you, inspire you to keep exploring, keep growing that garden, and keep cultivating the best leader within you and for those around you. Until next time.